I'm going to sit perfectly still right now and not get any closer. I'm sorry.
So you got a little prop there? I'm waving a little piece of oak tag around, thinking, oh, finally. I'm the Millennia's Gallagher.
No, I have the liner notes for...
Meant to say Carrot Tops. You have the liner notes for hold on to those for what we're talking about later.
But what I'm saying is I don't need them now, so I don't need to put them across my keyboard like I was about to do.
Now, are you saying that because you did your little prop bit, waving it around, and it didn't go like you planned, or was it because it was accidentally across your keyboard?
I was putting it across.
Also, I meant to say...
No, you meant Gallagher.
I meant Carrot Top, but I said Gallagher.
Gallagher works, though. He uses props.
I don't think he's working anymore. Who's going to a Gallagher show? Carrot Top plays Vegas every other hour.
Well, I think he's, like, housed there.
He probably shows up and goes, how's everybody doing? Is probably how he opens his act. Then I bet he pulls out like a God, I can't think of a single prop. Oh, he probably pulls out a piece of oak tag, waves it in front of the microphone, and then he starts his show. Hey everyone ever, and welcome to 20th Century Popcast, the show where we try to understand the present while living in the past. My name is Tim Blevins.
And I am Bob Canning. Hey Tim.
Yes, Bob.
We're living in the past. How far back in the past are we going to go today?
Wow.
Do you know?
Well, we're not going to go very far into the future because we jumped right into it. Good job. Good job. I do know. You mean like what we'll be talking about today? When the year of that? Well, it was 1986. So what is it? That's 32 years. 32 years in the past.
Oh, geez. Don't put a number on it. Just give me the year. I don't need to know how long ago that was. 86 sounds like, 4 or 5 weeks ago. Well, maybe months ago.
What's this?
This is depression. This is a little bit of ageism depression.
This is real. I thought it was a bit.
No, when I was 32.
Depression is not a bit with you. Mm-hmm.
I have been 32 years old.
For how long now?
And for 11 years. And like that was old to me, 32. And to know that there's
old. You're right.
But to know that there is a movie as old that I like, as old as I once was, 11 years ago is just hard to fathom, which is weird to even say on this, our 700th episode, because it's all we've talked
of our
about.
Nostalgia pop show. No, but I guess we've never addressed it that way. That's true. This measurement of time based on an age. Because, 32 when you're, because in 1986, welcome, by the way, welcome everyone to a couple of depressed, old, ancient of days men. People, humans, talking about the 80s. But welcome to the show. I'm going to do that, and then we'll get right back to what you were saying. Welcome to the show, everyone. Today, on the show, we're doing our segment called Retro Shock, which ties into what Bob's saying, because Retro Shock is shocked. When we talk about... You are, but not retroactively. Like, you're shocked in the moment.
I'm in the moment. But to hear 32 years, Did
that really strike you?
I wasn't expecting
28.
Well, like you said, you usually don't put years on it, how old something is.
Well, I think we always put years on something. That's how you tell.
We put years in, like, what year it was released. 1986. Yes. To hear 1986. But the counting of the numbers. But yes, to say that was 32 years ago is not something we have done often on this show. And so to hear that, because I'm very excited to talk about our topic. Have we shared our topic?
We haven't, and I'm surprised that you're excited because this isn't a topic that I'm that attached to.
Ah.
So maybe you should. Why don't you take the reins? Why don't you quickly explain what a retro shock is, and then tell everyone what we're retro shocking?
Yes. So our retro shock episodes are when we talk about something from our youth, either our childhood youth, or teen years of youth, or college youth, that we haven't returned to in a while. And we talk about our memories of it, what we think of it, if it's a happy memory, sad memory, or bad memory. And then we actually return to it. We take a break from recording. We go and watch, listen, or read. And then we come back and talk about, does it live up to what we thought it was?
Have we read anything? We don't really do books on this show.
No, but I thought I would sound smart. Say I read sometimes.
Book smart.
Yeah.
Okay. Which you don't. You don't read much.
Not-
You must read the backs of the DVDs that we're watching.
Backs of deep. Well, actually, lately I read the Netflix summaries.
Okay, that's fun.
Yeah.
You know, capsulized review, sometimes with an actor's name, oftentimes with a question like, can a televised tool repairman and his slightly political wife raise 3 kids next to a faceless monster? I don't know. That's might be what's on Netflix. But today on this particular show, what are we?
So today we are going to talk about.
Jesus.
We're going to talk about Flight of the Navigator.
Yeah, a Disney movie, Flight of the Navigator from 1986 that, I mean, I've seen it. Something is intriguing about it, but we haven't done any Disney movies. Were Disney movies a big thing for you to see growing up?
No,
Were you a Disney
they weren't.
fan,
Disney didn't
kid?
become a thing for me until my teen years in high school when Aladdin came out. Yeah.
So you didn't watch like the Disney Sunday night movie
not
on ABC
often.
where they'd show
I
stuff?
have.
Really? That was a ritual in our house. Did you have Disney books, like the characters? Did you like the Disney characters?
I was aware of
it's a big name.
Disney. I was aware of it, but it wasn't a ritual. We didn't watch it every Sunday night.
Okay. It was a ritual. We would slice the unworthy across the wrist, bleed it on a pair of red suspenders, sit there, we would skin their ears, place them atop our head, and we would sit there and watch as Michael Eisner introduced that week's segment of Mr. Boogedy or whatever fucking program they were showing.
Mr. Boogedy, that's a real thing.
It is. That's a real Disney Sunday night movie. Maybe we should be doing Mr. Boogedy,
I remember
but instead,
that. I have.
you do?
I remember the name.
Well, there was a Bride of Boogedy. There were 2, but I think we're maybe getting off topic. Disney was a big presence in my childhood, but it was through books, it was through cartoons. But in terms of big screen films, Disney on the big screen, that's not what we went to the movies for.
Right.
But Flight of the Navigator, so that's a Disney movie, and you seem very fond of it, I guess.
Yes.
You seem a bit of a fan.
I have in my retro memory of Flight of the Navigator. I have
retro memory. What is it?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to just tie it back into the topic, but no, I didn't see Flight of the Navigator in the theater. I didn't know Flight of the Navigator existed when I first saw it.
Oh, really?
Yes, this is another one of those movies that I saw at the babysitter we've talked about, where she just put the older kids in front of the TV and they could watch whatever they wanted to on Cinemax.
They could watch Flight of the Navigator.
That's what we watch sometimes.
Skinemax.
And so that's how I discovered Flight of the Navigator. It might have been on HBO. I'm not sure. And I didn't see it at the beginning.
Could have been on that Disney Channel.
It could have been, but I don't think they had that.
Okay.
But here's real quick, though. This is why Flight of the Navigator means something to me. I saw it kind of at the beginning, but not from the beginning. And I didn't get to see the end. And I thought it was pretty cool. And so the next time I was at that babysitter, I sought it out. I asked if she could check the schedule and find it. So I found it again, but we were too late. So I was just seeing another part of it, not the whole thing. And then eventually that summer, I was able to actually sit and watch the entire movie. And so for me, it was this strange, weird, interesting movie, which, if you don't mind me, can I say a little bit about it at this point, or did you have...
Yeah, actually, please do, because I don't know if this is a big movie for... It sounds like it is for you. I don't know if this is a movie a lot of people know, so please, say a little bit of what the movie's about, but then follow through on this, because it sounds like this movie was a bit of a hunt for you.
Yeah,
a chase.
And I think that's why it's stuck with me. So I'll tell it the way that I saw it. So basically, it's like the first time I see it, it's a boy in a spaceship, and a human boy in a spaceship, and he's got some aliens on the spaceship, and it's this cool silver bullet type of spaceship that's just going light speed. Well, I don't think it was light speed. It was just booking across fields and on the earth, and that's like my first memory of this movie, and I don't remember much else from that first viewing, but just that image was like, holy cow, what is going on? And so when I got to seek it out again, I got to see that the boy was abducted, basically. He goes missing, and he ends up on this spaceship. And I can't quite remember why. I know that the alien needed help. It was like going from planet to planet, trying to get other aliens or creatures to do something. And the alien that's in control, and it's not even an alien. It's I think it's like a computer guy, like an onboard computer that has like a little face that comes down or a little eye thing that comes down and talks
like
to the boy.
A mechanical eye on a stalk, like a metal stalk. And a voice. Do you know who voices the ship, don't you? The famous comedian who voiced the craft.
I don't know for sure. I'll guess Robin Williams.
Oh, well, not a bad guess. Paul Reubens, Pee Wee Herman of Pee Wee Herman fame, was the voice of the Navigator. It would have been the year after Pee Wee's Big Adventure. But I'm sorry, keep going. So you're saying the movie, the kid gets abducted by an alien because the alien needs help.
And so the second viewing, again, I came in after it started. In the second viewing, holy shit, he gets returned home and his whole family is like 30 years older. He's still a boy, and all of his family is
9 years older, but 9 years older.
This is the memory I have. They were at least 30, 35 years older. And so again, I don't have the full story. I don't have any idea what's going on, and I still can't see the ending. So I believe it was the third time's the charm. I got to actually sit down and watch it from beginning to end and thought it was just the coolest thing. And again, it is one of those types of movies that I've talked about liking before, where a child or a person who is unsure of what they're getting involved in, unskilled about what's at stake, and still they have to find a way to figure it out and get through that adventure. I always like those kinds of movies. And this was one of them.
Well, it sounds like the perfect kid movies for you.
I thought it was great. Do I remember much more? Is it a good movie? I don't know those things. But my memory
so you haven't gone back to it.
I have not gone back to it. I've been pressing my kids to watch it with me, and they always say no. Okay. And I try to explain it in fun ways.
That pressure never seems to work out. Forcing things on children doesn't work out. Something I'm curious about, that experience of just randomly encountering part of a movie and seeing part of a movie and having to hunt it down, but not knowing the full thing. I mean, is that an experience you still have? Is that something that might still happen to you now? Yeah,
that happens now. I don't usually seek out the movie to see it. There hasn't been oftentimes where I've run into that and been like, I gotta watch that movie. Usually it's like, what the fuck are we watching? And it's usually my wife and I, like, in bed trying to find something to watch as we try and fall asleep, and we get to some weird random over the airwaves station that is showing some old random movie, and we're both like, oh, wait a minute, that's a young Robert Downey Jr., and that's an old Ozzie Davis, and what is this movie? What's going on? And so that happens, but never something that's completely new and I got to figure out what this movie is. That hasn't happened lately.
The experience of just stumbling across something and being drawn into that is something that as a kid happened all the time. Why wouldn't it? Because you're just open to it, but also because I think growing up, like you said, you had to ask your babysitter, or this particular babysitter, to hopefully wash your hands first, and then flip through the TV guide and find, when is this on? What is this?
Yeah.
Like, that experience of not quite knowing what's on TV it kind of eludes me now, because 1, we have the channel guide. 2, you can look up titles, and 3, most of the stuff I watch retroactively. Again, it happens. I'm sure it does happen, but it's a rare instance where I'm flipping around and I'll catch something that's partway through and I'll stay with it. I'll be like, oh, this is great. I got to go back. Yeah. Like, I need, like we always say, or I always say, and I think you agree, and if not, please challenge me. We're completists. So if I'm going to watch something, unless I've seen it before, I got to see it from start to end. And I think it closes off one way of viewing things, that experience, like not knowing anything about Flight of the Navigator as a kid, and you see this kid in a ship, that would be exciting. I don't think we live in an age that often where you can come across something you didn't know existed. It might be like you're saying, where it's an actor. You're like, who is this actor? I've had that happen. Like Tom Hiddleston was in some vampire movie that I flipped by, and I stayed on that for a bit. And I guess that's the closest it comes to. But yeah, I do miss... And I think video stores was the last, having a video store, not owning, but to go into, was maybe the last time I experienced this, where you're inundated with, just titles and a limited way of really knowing what it's about, and you have to take a risk. You have to grab it from the shelf to bring it home. And I think back then, I don't know if it was a risk, but you come across something like this, on cable, Flight of the Navigator on cable, and you sit down and you watch it, and you're devoting your time. You're throwing yourself in, and maybe you're not as obsessed of what's on all the other channels because you can't tell. You're watching this program, and that's a great way to experience something, and I think it's a foreign way to do it now. Like, I don't get to do that as much. I don't get to stumble across things, and there's probably ways to do it. There's probably plenty of ways to do it, but I don't, and I miss that. I miss that discovery of something.
Yeah, it's hard too because as a kid, you're not you're not in tune to the pop culture world as adults, as people like you and I that seek this stuff out. You know what's premiering. You know what's coming up. You know where the shows have buzz, what shows have buzz. So it's not like there's suddenly going to be.
I think I knew some of that growing up. I knew what a fall season was. I knew what the summer movies were.
I'm talking at maybe like, what was I in '86? I was 12. I don't know if I did at 12 and that age. Excuse me. But it's not like you're going to be surprised that so-and-so suddenly has a new show or something. And then even you were talking about video stores, you might say Netflix or Hulu or one of the streaming services is similar because you can just sort of randomly look at pictures and then read a synopsis. But there's really no risk because if you start watching it and you're not into it, you just flip it off and go find something else. And you're not out $3.
And that's not a bad thing. I'm not putting that down. It's just it's a different experience. And I think my mind has shifted into that experience where I don't really test the waters on something anymore. It's rare for me to watch a movie for a bit and then decide, I'm not going to watch this. Yeah. I'm going to stick with it or I'm not going to turn it on. But Flight of the Navigator, I mean, I knew the movie existed.
So, I wanted to get back to that. How did you come across it and what's your memory of it?
Well, I remember the commercials for it. I remember, I think it was the summer, but I do remember it coming out. And, the title was exciting. I loved UFOs, so the look of the ship looked exciting, but I didn't know enough about it. The movie, it's about a kid in the 70s who gets abducted by a UFO and gets dropped back off on Earth 10 years later by this UFO. So there's this weird time jump thing. It's about the UFO being found by this government agency led by Howard Hessman. So there was this crashed saucer angle to it. And it had Sarah Jessica Parker as someone working at a science facility who brings this kid Transformer toys to play with. So I like that too. So there was a lot in this movie to like. I saw it because something that would happen as kids, our elementary school had a very big gymnasium auditorium. And so maybe it was one Friday every month. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was a fundraiser or just something they did. They would show on a big screen a movie, Friday night that kids could come to. You get your popcorn, you get your soda, and you watch it. And they were always Disney movies. I think for a while they were what I would have thought were older Disney movies. The Swiss Family Robinson, Alice in Wonderland. The computer wore tennis shoes, Kurt Russell wore tennis shoes, whatever the movies are, it'd be one of those. And then I think, then I just remember they got this, Flight of the Navigator played. So we went and we saw that, and I saw that on a big screen. I think that's the memory I had. But it wasn't a movie I was thinking about. Like, I remembered it the summer before. It seemed exciting, and then I just forgot about it. And then we were just brought to it. That's the other thing. As a kid, you were just brought to shit. Put in front of it. You're going to watch Sword in the Stone. You're going to watch Ray Bolger, but not the Ray Bolger you want to watch, some other Ray Bolger movie. You're going to watch something that someone else has decided for you. And most of the time, I would find a way to like that. And my memory of Flight of the Navigator is sort of that memory. Like, I don't think I necessarily liked the movie, but I found the things in the movie to like. Sarah Jessica Parker. Transformer toys, crashed UFO mystery. But I wasn't excited for this movie. I have not gone back to see the movie since it came out. I mainly remember it because, to tie it to the beginning again, there's a clip of it on the opening credits to the Disney Sunday night movie. I think the ship flies by or something. And I think another thing is when the movie was coming out, they probably did a little behind the scenes thing before it came out. So I knew of it. It was tied into Disney. It's a Disney thing. But much like Tron, much like The Black Cauldron, that's how I experienced it, as a clip, as part of this credit sequence. So the movie itself, I remember the plot of it, but I don't have an opinion on this movie, really.
Yeah, and that's I don't have an opinion either. I mean, my experience is more about the search for it. My memory of it is more about figuring out the mystery of the movie. I don't remember if it's a good movie. I mean, I liked it enough to want to keep watching it, to keep going back to it. So I must have thought it was good, but I don't remember if it's
So
good.
good memory, bad memory on this, what would you call it?
I'd call it a good memory.
Okay. All right. I mean, I guess I'm going to say good memory as well, with the caveat that it's a good memory because I sat through it. Again, it didn't resonate with me. I never talked about the movie much, but I think I enjoyed it. I don't know if this is going to be a dull episode because I don't know what we're diving in with this, but let's go check it out. Let's go watch Flight of the Navigator. And when we come back, let's hopefully have at least a few minutes of something to say. That's an endorsement to come back after this musical break, everyone. This movie opens up with a nice fake out, to be honest. It opens up with a frisbee.
Yeah, there's a few fake outs in the
There's actually
opening.
we want to skip over dogs and talk about that because I enjoyed the start of this movie. I'll say that right now. I didn't think I was going to. I enjoyed the first maybe 20 minutes
aside from the
of
frisbee
this.
catching dogs.
Well, that's the thing. We see a lot of frisbee catching dogs at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's to some rock song, I suppose. It's set in Florida, which would have been a weird setting to me even then. It did not look like a place. I mean, this is, it's a movie about a family, two parents and their two kids who live in Florida. And just watching it now, I'm like, I think I remember that not making sense to me. It did not look like where I lived. It looked gross. I didn't know they're at a festival. They're at a frisbee festival for dogs.
Is that what it is? A frisbee festival for dogs?
I think so, because the dogs are the ones participating.
It's not a dog show. It's not a dog competition with frisbees, but a frisbee festival for dogs.
Well, that's who's like, we don't see anybody throwing the frisbees. We just see...
You do eventually.
Do you? Is it one of the dogs? Is it whipping it around?
It's another dog. Yeah, they're whipping it with their tail.
I guess this was, I remember when I saw this movie, I saw it on a big screen in the school gymnasium. I remember the audience applauding the shit out of these dogs. People were cheering every time a dog caught one. If a dog missed it, it'd be like, oh, but everyone was crazy for this sport, this Air Bud-like sport of dogs catching frisbees for an entire 2 minutes.
That's the mood of that night, though. Wasn't that like a fundraising sort of thing you were saying? I can't recall exactly.
But we were screening the movie, it was just, I don't know. It was people. I guess it was some rinky-dink town that I grew up in, who was surprised to see sports on the big screen. But I don't know. That, as an opening, like,
that wouldn't happen if you had seen it in a movie theater. I would hope not.
But it's just the whole idea of this, the dogs jumping, dogs catching frisbees. I mean, are you a fan of the Air Bud movies?
No, not at all. I'm not a fan
dogs playing sports.
There's some dog movies I like. I don't mind Hotel for Dogs. My kids have been watching that recently. That's like cute, dogs. I guess.
I mean, if they have a job, maybe a German Shepherd or the one that has the barrel around its neck.
Canine. You like Canine? Turner and Hooch.
The Jim Belushi Canine.
Yeah. Do you know there's like 14 Jim Belushi canine movies?
Is the same dog in all of them?
Probably the same character of that dog.
But they recast them.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they did in The Jerk 2, but it's not Steve Martin. Oh. Is Jim Belushi in all of the canine movies?
Jim Belushi hits all 14 of them.
When these all went direct to your house? I mean, I don't remember these coming out.
He's actually putting on a canine play down the street here. No, I think the second one it went to the theaters.
K911.
Yeah,
Would
that
be
one.
Maybe the name because it looks like a 2.
And then the rest sort of.
Is that what it's called?
K911? One of them is K911. Yes.
See, if they went up to 14, they blew it because that should have been K911. But the dogs in this movie, the opening of this movie.
Yeah, this one.
Because you get a frisbee, a little fake out frisbee, because we're going into it knowing it's a UFO movie. And I like that. Like you said, there's a couple of fake outs, and I really enjoyed those, because those to me felt like that as a kid is what I can relate to.
Yeah.
The idea of the frisbee in the air and catching that photo. There's a pretty creepy blimp shadow. Mm-hmm. Like, and this is like where the filmmaker is playing with you.
Yeah.
The filmmaker knows this is a UFO movie, not Hotel for Dogs playing frisbee with Jim Belushi. So during it, you see the shadow kind of fall over and everybody kind of looks skyward. And again, it's aimed at kids because that would be a very dull reveal in an adult movie. Like, oh, here's the ship already. But they all look up and it's a blimp. And blimps, by the way, to me in 1986, blimps, scary. Pretty scary things. I'd never seen a blimp. The idea of a blimp, this big craft in the sky, is scary. So that's kind of a nice fake out. There's my favorite one because I've had this very thing happen to me. He's walking in the woods and he looks up to the trees and you see what looks like one of the George Adamski ships from the 50s, one of those old kind of UFOs, and he walks a little further and it's a water tower. It's like a metal water tower and these spokes. And it's just how the trees fell. You didn't see the legs. And like, that's actually a legitimate jump scare to me in the movie. I loved that. Again, because it's right there is a kind of a smart director in this kid's movie. This actually kind of dark, really well set up start to a legitimate sci-fi kid movie, I think.
Yeah. I mean, the whole, I don't know, the first 30 to 40 minutes I thought was pretty damn engaging. Like I was right there with it. And my daughter came out during that opening. Like they didn't want to watch the movie. I asked them to watch it. So I watched it after they went to bed, but she came out to use the restroom and came into the front room and was enthralled. I can't remember exactly what was happening, but she saw that the boy was in trouble or upset, and she wanted to know what was going to happen. And then it started to get a little scary.
In the 70s? It does get scary.
Yeah, that didn't. That wasn't obvious to her, and she didn't stick around to see the time travel reveal. But yeah, it started to get scary, and she was like, "You know what? No, I'm going to go to bed." And I'm like, "Okay, maybe we'll watch it in the morning." And they ended up not watching it. But yeah, it is engaging and a little frightening. Especially as a kid movie.
When they're setting it up.
Yeah.
And when they're not really showing you anything yet. This is actually a movie that builds its entire 1970s segment, the first 15, 20 minutes of the movie, on the knowledge that you know a little bit of what the movie's about.
Yeah.
You know this kid's going to get on a spaceship. You know, and this movie wasn't made by Disney. It was bought and distributed by Disney. So I don't know what the initial filmmaker, how they thought it was going to be promoted. But as a Disney movie, you know what you're seeing. You're seeing the posters of the kid on the ship. You're seeing the ship in the commercials, the special effects. So these opening 15 minutes are very, I don't know, it's very indie film in a way. I was really engrossed in this. And I was thinking while watching it, I guess maybe like E.T., but knowing that this movie was bought up by Disney. Like you can actually tell this doesn't feel like a Disney movie throughout. There's swearing in it. There's kids in a little more peril than normal. They think the kid dies. There's a legitimate sad kind of, he's dead kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like it does feel like a more adult movie. There's swearing. There's him and his brother go back and forth at, calling each other scuzz bucket and things that I don't think would normally show up in a Disney movie. But so I'll get to that in a minute, but just to finish this thought, I like that this movie starts off really playing off of you, and again, not showing you anything.
Yeah.
And I found that very fulfilling. Because when you finally do see the ship, when you do see this silver clamshell, seamless, Roswell-looking, a little bit of the movie Heavy Metal or appearing kind of spaceship, the first time you see it, I think it's crashed. Is that right?
Yes.
It's under a tarp or something?
It was, no, I don't think it was under a tarp yet. Maybe it was. But yeah, it had sort of crashed, took out some power lines or something, and it was crashed, and some regular Joe Schmo was there on the ground.
I believe his name is Howard Hessman.
No. I'm talking about just the first people that saw it.
Oh, okay.
And then Howard Hessman, the government guy, shows up.
Yes. The NASA guy? Is he from NASA?
I guess he's from NASA. Yeah, it's a very.
Can NASA declare martial law the way he does?
I don't think so. No.
There's
some aspects of that are very movie magic. Just things that needed to happen that made it seem tense and a lot of high pressure situations. But yeah, it was still very cool, and you're seeing it. And then you're also seeing like little bits of reveals about what it can do, what it does. I really liked when they were curious about how they were going to move it. And the guy that first saw it says to Howard Hessman, it's like, oh, that's going to be no problem. And he goes over and he just kind of touches it lightly and it floats in that direction. It's just sort of neat. And like for me, the first time seeing that, like you're saying, with all these reveals and tricks, it was just really cool and interesting. It's like, what is inside that? What's going to be next? Why is it floating? How can it float? Yeah, it's a really good start to this movie.
And it's 1986, just to put this into some context, because what you're seeing there is the Roswell story, the UFO crash at Roswell. The ship they found that was supposedly shaped very similar to this was supposedly very light to the touch. Didn't have any noticeable entrances or seams. Like all of these things, as a kid watching this, so I must have known the Roswell story at that point from Unsolved Mysteries or something. That's there. You know, this might have been the first thing I ever saw where I'm like, oh, that's like that story, even though I think there may have been movies prior to that had come out. So this is kind of playing off a particular era of the 80s and time. Do you and basically the storyline, which I think we talked about in the first half, so we don't have to go over it, is like our main character, whose name I've already forgot, very forgettable child with a striped shirt.
Yeah.
Encounters the spaceship in 1976, gets sucked aboard it or something, wakes up in the woods disoriented, ship flies off or something, wanders home.
That's even more than they show in the movie. Basically, he falls down into a ditch looking for his dog. And
whose name's like, what's the dog's name? He's got like Smasher or something, I think.
Sure. Chomp.
Chompers? No,
Yeah.
I wrote it down. That's what I'm trying to remember. But okay, this is clearly important. I'm sorry. What were you saying?
Well, but like you don't even see the ship. He was looking for his brother to bring him home from his friends or whatever. His brother kind of scares him, which was another kind of jump cut. Was that an alien? No, it's just his brother. His brother starts.
That made me jump. You're right.
His brother runs off home. He's got to kind of get the dog, and I guess the dog went down into a gully or something, and he fell down into it, and there's a bit of a jump cut, and he sort of wakes up down at the bottom. Like, we're not sure if he's waking up or if he just fell and he's getting up, but there's a jump cut. And because I know the movie, I noticed this, and I don't know if I ever noticed it before, but the jump cut involves a sound cut too. So there's crickets and there's just this wind or whatever, and then when it cuts, there's no cricket noise, there's no extra wind noise. And so knowing that we've now jumped ahead in time, because I knew that, I'm like, oh, that's exactly where that happens. So now
it's very Close Encounters like and very UFO abduction lore like this.
But only because we know the movie, because that moment they try and mask that, they try and hide that. Just like he fell and then he got up and then he starts heading home. And
but they're not trying to hide it if the sound cut.
Well,
they put that. They didn't.
I think
accidentally catch no cricket.
No. That's what I'm saying. It's like it's not as obvious as he gets sucked up by a UFO and the UFO flies off. We don't see any of that. It's just this weird jump cut with the sound cut, and then he walks back the same path. The route home looks just like the route there, and then we only start to realize we've changed time, that something's going on when he gets to his house and it's locked and he can't get in. And when he does get in, it's this older couple that lives there now.
A very understanding older couple.
Yeah,
they kind of as this kid screaming. And a very terrifying scene. You're right. It's different than Back to the Future 2 a little bit, which has a similar scene of, not being the time you thought it is that you're walking in. But yeah, it's not his house. Those aren't his parents. He's freaking out when he sees this. He's screaming. They're actually, because we know, like you're saying, knowing what's going on, they're kind. But it's actually kind of creepy. They try to corner him. They say, "Can we help you?" It's legitimately terrifying.
Yeah.
This storyline. And eventually it turns out, he finds out he's in 1986. So I think he's jumped ahead 8 years, because I think it's from 78 to 86. He gets in touch. His parents still live in the town. They live in a different house, I guess. And they thought he was dead. That's the thing. You find out he was reported missing and dead.
Yep. They never thought they'd see him again.
No. And he shows up alive and having not aged. And you're seeing everyone's reaction to this. And it's fucking unnerving. He gets taken by I forget what, but some scientists strap him to a gurney, and there's a scary kind of jump cuts there when he's on the gurney, kind of in and out of consciousness. It's scary. I mean, watching that, do you think it's a kid's movie? Did it still feel like a kid's movie to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it still felt like a kid's movie to me. I mean, it was the kind of stuff that was how I would play if I were to play Alien Abduction, this is how I would play it. You know, it's like there would be a gurney and there would be in and out of consciousness and there'd be a police car and sitting in the back of it. And it all felt
Wait,
safe.
that's how as a kid you would have played UFO abduction?
Maybe I would have, yeah. But it was all sort of scary safe, you know? It's like, yes...
I don't think it's safe at all. This is what I'm saying. Like,
but
how I would have played Alien Abduction is the rest of this movie. But I mean, like you're saying, the couple... It's a kid's movie because he goes into the house and it's a couple that is understanding and wants to help him. It's not like he goes into the house. You're right. It is a kid's movie.
It's like now it's a drug den and the hookers are there. You know what I mean?
No, that's not... I wasn't saying or suggesting that that's not what's happening. No, that's not. But no, you're right. And it is a kid's movie. You're right. I mean, I'm just saying like it plays like a different kid's movie.
Yeah,
maybe kids' movies in the 80s were like this. It's a little darker, though.
Yeah, it's definitely got a darkness to it. And I mean, the scary part for me, especially as a kid, was how aged and beaten down his parents looked.
You mean their actual appearance?
Yeah, like they were just young and youthful in the opening. And then now it's like for me, I've always been affected by that because it's like their life has turned to hell since they lost their kid. And
you watch Cliff DeYoung get the life squeezed out of him,
yeah,
which he never recovers from. Anything you ever see Cliff DeYoung on, that's what he looks like. No, I find it interesting. Like I loved the movie up to this point. While watching it, but probably a little past it. I want to look at what you were saying, which, like, as a kid, if you were to play Alien Abduction, that's what you would have done. I feel like where this movie goes, because eventually, you know, the story keeps going. He gets taken to NASA. They find out he has weird star maps in his brain because computers can do that, yeah, I guess.
Movie magic.
Movie magic. And he happens to be, I don't know if he's at the same part of NASA where the crashed ship is found or if the ship seeks him out. Like, it turns out he got returned to 1986 because the ship crashed. That's why they're both there.
Yeah.
And eventually, as the story goes, and it's easy to figure out if you're thinking, well, what is this movie about? He comes across the saucer. He escapes NASA's clutches and he gets on board this flying saucer.
Now, hold on. You're skipping over Ralph.
Yeah,
are we going to talk about Ralph at all?
Why don't you?
Ralph stands for the Robotic Assistant Labor Facilitator.
Is that what that stands for?
Yeah, I wrote that down, Tim, yes.
Okay, because I have Ralph written down, but I don't have what it means.
Robotic
it's like
Assistant
so
Labor Facilitator.
He gets taken to a lab. Our main character, whose name I wish I had written down because I didn't, gets taken to a lab where he's going to have to live with Sarah Jessica Parker working as a nurse.
Yes.
And a kickback toy.
Yeah, she's like an intern or something. I don't know what it is.
Oh, Bruiser was the dog's name, by the way. Bruiser. Because I had that written under Sarah Jessica Parker for some reason. But yeah, so I'm sorry. So the Robotic Assisted Living Facilitator.
Right. Ralph. Yeah, no, it's just one of those things that really wouldn't exist. Doesn't need to exist, and if it did exist, it wouldn't look like what it looks like. It's this.
Here's the thing: you say it doesn't exist. We have, like, you can go to a restaurant.
No,
and when they're clearing the tables, they have a push cart that you can take things off of, put things on. You can have a cabinet. Push cart? Well, that's basic. Ralph is basically a box on wheels, right?
Yeah, box
that
on
transports
wheels.
Things around. Yeah.
Like it for mail. Like there's a slot for mail that you would put it in, and this giant box on wheels just somehow knows what to do with that.
If Disney had made this movie from the get-go, that would have been a cute robot. It would have had saucer looking like eyeballs or satellite antenna or something. Like, it would have been something. This legitimately is a box that you can drive around with a remote control, like an upside-down recycle bin.
Yeah.
That we're supposed to laugh at, that has a name, and that has possibly some of the lowest stakes chase sequence footage I've ever seen in a movie. Because ultimately, the main character, again, whose name I wish I had written down.
David.
When he goes... Is it David?
It's David.
Okay, so David wants to escape eventually, so he hops inside Ralph. He opens a little access panel, right, and crawls inside Ralph and drives across an airfield, basically.
Is probably longer than the frisbee dog sequence.
It's a very lengthy sequence. I wrote down Robert escape theme. Is Robert his name?
I don't think so.
Okay, and I don't remember how the theme went. I assume it was guitar. But yeah, this is where the movie starts to lose me because it's boring. This actually is legitimately boring.
Yep.
There's no effects. There's a box that's motorized. And again, that should have been a character. Because you're right. Does that thing really exist? Probably not. It doesn't have a need to exist.
Right.
So if you're going to put something in the movie, do like they did in Space Camp and give us a fucking robot, Give it a voice. Well, I regret that. I say give it a voice. We do get something with a voice because ultimately what David or Robert does is he comes across the crashed ship. I think they've been communicating maybe.
Yeah, it sort of calls to him. He has headaches or whatever, and he knows that he can see out his window the hangar where it is, where he's getting this
Which
vibe
is creepy.
From.
It looks creepy when it's just hovering there. And he approaches it, and it kind of opens up, and it creates these poorly animated liquid steps.
Right.
Which watching this movie, they're bad blue screen effects, but I had kind of forgotten what liquid metal looked like before CGI. It looked like this. I probably enjoyed this effect as a kid.
Sure. Oh, it was very cool as a kid. These little teardrops coming down and forming solid steps. That was cool.
And he crawls up those steps, and he enters the ship, and he's greeted by, again, this eyeball on a stalk, who starts talking to him. And that's when this movie loses me.
Yeah.
And it's weird because as a kid, this is what I would play as alien abduction. Because the kid gets on the ship. The kid interacts with this alien life, which he names Max. It's this eyeball stalk again on the Trimerian drone ship, I believe is what the ship is called.
Okay.
Which made me wonder, is the ship a creature? Is it a planet of ships? Or is this just a computer that's built by... I don't know who built this.
Right.
I don't know what the race looks like who pilots it, but there are controls for David or Robert or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Maybe that says robot escape theme. Maybe that's why I think it's auto-corrected to Robert because I mistyped it. But this kind of getting on the ship, talking to this eyeball that talks back to him and kind of being in control of the situation because he's startled by the eye stalk, but he quickly gets over that.
Yeah.
And he's able to escape and outrun the adults because the adults are coming in to try to stop him. And we see the ship move. And it's the last exciting moment of the film is that when you kind of get to see what can the ship do.
Yeah.
That's how I would have that's probably the part of the movie as a kid I enjoyed.
Sure.
I probably didn't like everything that led up to it till we saw the fucking Decepticons in his room. The toys, not actual Decepticons.
Yeah, that's a different
So it's odd to me, though, that you're saying as a kid you liked the actual conspiratorial, realistic approach to this real-world adventure.
Yeah, that part always was my more favorite thing, and I like that in all sorts of stories where I like the build-up part often more than the reveal part. Because sometimes when you get to the reveal, you get something like this that just doesn't quite live up to everything that's come before it.
Is that what it is, or is it because the stakes kind of drop once you get on the ship?
Sure.
Because maybe it's what you're saying, what's going on. The ship talks to him. The ship calls the kid the Navigator. I don't quite understand, why does this kid have to fly him?
Yeah, it's...
Other than the title of the movie?
The space maps that NASA found in his head were put
David
there...
Roberts' head.
Yeah, were put there by this ship, or the controller of the ship. And when he crashed, he lost that information. And so the ship did. And so he needed the boy again to get all those maps back. So he could get home.
That's explained. It must be.
At some point, it's
I
mentioned.
Missed that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
well, then that's enough, I guess.
Yeah, and see, I still kind of enjoyed some of the spaceship stuff up until, because I thought it was cool too to learn what the whole purpose was. His purpose was to go from planet to planet and collect specimens, study them, and then return them.
That part's important because it's still kidnapping, but it's kidnapping
yes.
and
but
returning
them,
I guess.
Back in time to the moment where they took them. So
and you get to see them. Those are some nice. Some of them are okay puppets.
Yeah, that was interesting to see. But again, this is where, like you are pointing out, the whole tone of the movie changes. It goes from this mystery sci-fi, what's going on? What are these maps? What is this vehicle? To, almost a slapsticky kind of ridiculous chase away from NASA. And it's not even really a chase. It's like they fly and hide somewhere, and then he has to get out and go to the bathroom at one point. You know, it just becomes silly. It's
very brief, too. I remember this part of the movie as being much longer. This is maybe 20 minutes of the film.
It's like the last... That's this quick ending. Like, the lead-up is, like, the majority of the movie. So it is. It's strange how... And
then, you hit the part where I'm pretty sure the director said, just run with it, Paul Reubens.
Yes.
Because Paul Reubens voices the eye, and... Initially, he's this very mechanical, authoritative sounding thing that keeps, I have to say, I got tired of the word compliant very quickly.
Compliance.
I think we're supposed to really enjoy that's his sort of response to any command.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden he becomes Wreck-Gar from, one of the Junkions because he infiltrates TV and he starts just quoting little random quips here and there as a way of interacting with David Roberts.
I think... And again, it's been over a month since I watched it, but I think that's when he had to go into his brain to pull out the maps. He took a bit of the boy's personality. I think that's when it sort of switched over and he got a little loopy.
And it's annoying. Like, I think as a kid, I found
annoying.
that funny. I remember the scene where they go to use the bathroom. I remember him fat shaming that poor guy who works there with the ship saying, hey, Porco, too many Twinkies. I remember all of that. That stuff as a kid that I liked, and yet this time around it was intolerable.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, it has been a while since we watched this. Maybe you can help me out. I'm looking over my notes here. I know the gist of this, but I don't remember exactly what. I have a little phrase here that wrote, Beach Boys sequence is shit awful.
Oh my God.
Do they sing a Beach Boys song or do they play it?
He plays the radio and they sing the song. The kid is now like comfortable in the driver's seat, and so they're singing. Because
he's the navigator.
Because he's the navigator, and they're singing along, and I feel like he was eating snacks and just flying with his feet.
Awful.
I don't know. It was just ridiculous.
That is awful.
Yeah,
that's awful. And then you know what the most boring part is? The most boring part of this entire movie. Anytime they're fucking flying around. I found that, again, I remember these effects as a kid as being like the speeder bikes in Return of the Jedi, or the opening credits of Back to the Future 2, even just zooming through the clouds and zooming over water, having a ship cut in and out. And it's really not much of that.
It's just pretty much a straight, I think the main effect was just that reflective mirror. So it's like just...
Which is a good effect.
Yeah, let's fly low to the ground. You can see it reflecting in the ship, and we'll just go in a straight line very fast.
And that part is fun. I like how it gets to the point when it goes faster, but it's just like you have a ship that can go anywhere in the world and it goes to a bathroom. It goes to an American bathroom, probably one state outside of Florida. They probably even say, I don't remember, but I'm just like, if you're just going to give us visuals, turn it into like a nature documentary or something. Take us up to I'm going to say up to Antarctica. Take us down to Antarctica. Take us to the Soviet Union. Take us to Germany. Take us somewhere to see. Not all of that is nature, but whatever. I just like... I'm just trying to think, like, what was the original gist of this? Because there's no real villain, like I think we said earlier. They're trying to get the kid and the ship back, but somewhat understandably, because the kid has been missing, came back when the ship came back and is missing again. I'm not saying they're doing it the right way, because you should never imprison a kid against their will. They do want to study him. Maybe if he was at the lab longer, Howard Hessman would have cut him and studied his brain. I don't know. So I get that, and I get that peril, but... The movie itself is very anticlimactic.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, do you think there was a different movie? Because it's definitely going in a different direction until you hit and again, it is a kid's movie. It's a kid movie from the start. But it's a great dark kid movie like Cloak and Dagger, or because you were mentioning it before the show, The Monster Squad. These are movies aimed at kids, or Gremlins, Jesus. Yeah. Movies aimed at kids that are just creepy. And this movie was creepy. And it's just, I don't know if it was a Disney mandate, if that's when they came in to fund it. I don't know what the split was, but this is two movies poorly taped together, I think.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, I don't know for sure if that happened, but it seems like something along the lines, they had to switch it up. They was like, oh, we need a happier ending. Yeah. Who knows what the original ending might have been in this story.
But how do you remember this? You were saying in the first half you remember seeing this in pieces.
Right.
Which, again, is how we're kind of experiencing it now. Do you remember these the later half of the film? Like, again, I find it very interesting that the way you would have played at 13 or whatever, 12, I forget how old you were, when would have been the first half of this movie. Do you remember the second half? Do you remember liking this part as a kid? The part I think you're supposed to like as a kid?
The part that I didn't remember as much. I mean, I knew he became comfortable in the ship, but I didn't remember it being so obnoxious. Like you're saying, I might have enjoyed it as a kid, and so it didn't rub me the wrong way. But I do remember there was some tension, and it just didn't work this time around. But I felt like there was tension with the fact that could he travel back through time again? That was like the main
there's
goal.
A very last minute, or maybe not last minute, but a very contrived piece of science in our Flight of the Navigator movie, which is like he can't travel back in time, or he's not supposed to be able to travel back in time. There's something about the idea of to get him home puts everyone at risk.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a selfish act because it puts everyone at risk. All the creatures on the ship, David Roberts, and it's kind of like, it's not, his family is helping him, right? I think at the end, his family's helping him escape. So they're maybe all for this. There's something with fireworks and his dumbass brother who swears and tells him not to take any shit from anyone. I remember that line for the first time I saw it. There's your PG. But I'm just like, I don't know, why not strand the kid in the 80s, or why not have more of this build? You got to get him home for a safe ending, and you can still do that. It's nice to go home, blah, blah, blah. But it just seems like it's not evenly balanced. We see it, the obvious comparison, Back to the Future. We go and we see Back to the Future, which in some ways you can draw some comparisons to, out of your own time. Everyone else is a different age but you. It's a risk to get back to your own time, but you got to do it. That's a similar storyline. Back to the Future, we like it because there's some investment with seeing people at two different ages. Like you had said kind of with the parents, you were a little like, oh, that's horrifying what Cliff DeYoung became. So that's there. Yeah. But show David Roberts struggle with that then. Back to the Future, which again, unfair to compare them. They're very different movies, both with an Alan Silvestri score, one of which is memorable, the other which is similar to the Beach Boys sequence, shit awful. But I don't know. I feel like something is missing in the purpose of having him travel through time. Like he's not really that put off by the 80s. And maybe it's because it's 7 years. So what has changed? People dye their hair. Starsky and Hutch isn't on TV. Robots named, what was his fucking name? Ralph exist. Like the jump itself isn't that much, but we don't even really see him struggle with the world. It's not like he has to use a push button phone or a VCR. It's kind of like in this idea of a time travel movie. The reason this genre of time travel is probably fun for kids and adults is because of things like that. You're playing around with, what's it called when something of one era is in the other one that's not supposed to be? What's that word?
Oh yeah, there's a word for that.
Oh my God, yeah. I've done this before. This is probably so obvious too, and I can't think of it.
As soon as you start to try and think of it, it's just never going to come to your head. I can't just
type in an anachronism.
Yes.
Is it an anachronism? Yes.
Anachronistic.
So anachronisms or anachronistic aspects of these stories. And honestly, in this movie, you get the one you get in a lot of movies. I think you get a different flavor of Coke. New Coke or Cherry Coke. Like that's consistently how Hollywood in the 80s depicted time travel. I'm just like, this movie, I don't think, maybe the time jump wasn't enough. I don't know what it is, but just it doesn't give us any reason to have him in the future other than the very scary storyline of this kid was missing for this long. Like that's a good storyline. Go back with that. But as a kid, I wouldn't have been interested in that, which wouldn't have made this a kid movie. But again, you would have. You're telling me that was the interesting story. Like, where do you think that could have gone? What would have made 11-year-old you really love this movie?
In regards to the time travel aspect?
Just the story, because you're saying, like, if you were to play Alien Abduction, you would have done the first half.
Yeah.
You would have done the mysterious part. Like, shouldn't there have been more of it? Like, maybe he had to hunt his family down, or maybe he had to convince his family, or...
there should have been... You're right. Yeah, there should have been more to that. He probably shouldn't have so quickly... Because as soon as he shows up at that... at his house, and he's got the two older people there helping him. They get the police involved. The police find his parents quickly. NASA shows up really quickly after that. It just all happened so fast.
Martial law declaring NASA.
Yeah, they take
fascist
the kid.
NASA.
They haven't seen their kid in 6 years, and they're like, yeah, okay, go ahead and take him for a weekend.
Right? That's weird,
yeah.
right?
So yeah, it does seem like that. It would have been better if the boy had to kind of figure it all out on his own, as opposed to having Sarah Jessica Parker help him out.
And how much do you need the spaceship at that point? How much does this story need the spaceship as an integral element of its storytelling, given the version you're kind of presenting?
I think you still need it because I think it being a kid's movie, I think it does need to end with him being back in his original time.
Well, how much of the hilarious Paul Reubens do you
that
need?
You don't need. That I don't think you could have done it a different
That's for kids, right? That's
the
there
kids
solely
part.
for kids.
That's the part where, like, I think we're hinting that Disney got involved and was like, no, we gotta goof this up a little.
But did you like that? A goofy movie this up.
Yeah.
Did you like that? Maybe you already said, I'm sorry if I'm forgetting. Did you like that ship character as a kid? Did you find it funny? Do you remember it?
I did not care. I liked it initially. I don't remember it. I really don't remember it. And that's what I was saying. Like, I know that he got on the ship. I remembered there being the other alien specimens. I thought that part was cool. I thought the design of the ship was cool.
One of which he takes back with him to the past, which seems like that's breaking some law.
Oh, yeah,
I guess it's set up
right.
that creature's planet was destroyed or something.
Let's have a sequel and have that thing grow to be, Godzilla size.
Well, I think I had not that thought, but I think I definitely had a thought of, is there more because of that as a kid? I think I thought, there could be a follow-up. And there could have been. There could have easily have been a follow-up that he comes back or something. Because there's a little bit of it was only a dream angle, except that there's not, because he has that little alien, and because he sincerely misses the ship. That's the thing. There's the part in the 80s takes place over maybe 2 days, 6 hours of which are when he gets in the ship and flies off. He has David Roberts has a very tearful farewell to the ship that he's been inside of for 6 hours.
Yeah.
Like, he's bawling his eyes out as he's saying goodbye.
You know what this reminds me of? Now that it just popped in my head, and I think we've talked about this before. Do you remember the movie Explorers?
I've never seen it. Awake. I've been in the room asleep while it played, but I do know of it, yes.
It's very similar, actually, and I'm wondering which one came first.
Explorers came out in 85.
Okay, so I wonder if this is playing off of that a little bit, or if they use that idea, because Explorers... My favorite part of Explorers is the lead up, this mystery of all this information they're getting to build a ship that will go into space. And then when they finally get to space, they basically meet a similar creature who is just pop culture referencing and is annoying as hell. And this was just a waste of time and technology. So... I guess.
Are you a fan of Explorers? I can't really tell.
Oh my God. I loved Explorers as a kid.
Oh, really?
Loved it. And again, it's a similar situation of it being like the first 45 minutes are the coolest thing of these kids.
There's more kids. All right. It's a group of kids.
Yeah, it's a group of kids. Ethan Hawke is one of them. I think River Phoenix is one. I'm not sure.
Yeah. And then I think, what's his name from Next Generation, maybe?
Will Wheaton?
Wesley Crusher, isn't he one of them? Am I wrong on that?
I don't know.
I could be very wrong.
Yeah, but just these kids kind of getting together and trying to figure out this information they're getting in their dreams, and it actually turns into something, and they're able to build a ship from junk in the junkyard. It's just so cool to me. And then they are on Earth and testing it and everything. But when they go to space, at the time as a kid, I probably enjoyed it. But I watched it again, in my 20s or 30s, and it was just like, wow, this ending is so hard to watch and get through. It's just ridiculous.
Did you still like the lead up?
Oh yeah, I still like the lead up. I thought the lead up. I mean, it was probably slower paced than I remember it when I rewatched it. But
these are similar movies, I guess. You're saying Explorers sounds like that might be the superior of the two.
I'm not sure.
Oh,
maybe we would have to watch it again to see.
Well, because something I would wonder. Something with Explorers, like Explorers, you have a group of kids So there's 3 or 4 kids you can play off of who are actively building this thing to get into space. So it's the kids' story, kids' angle. And again, it's a group. They're doing this together. So there's a friendship bond. Flight of the Navigator, and to use it as an example that I watched a lot as a child, Back to the Future, you have one kid, who's kind of in it themselves and are thrown in it and don't actually have an active hand in getting to that story. Flight of the Navigator kid is just walking his dog, Notorious, or whatever the dog's name was, Bruiser, I think, and gets sucked up and dropped off. And then, eventually gets assigned the mantle of Navigator. But he isn't actively doing anything to put himself into this scenario. Back to the Future, arguably, is kind of the same thing. I mean, Marty gets in the car to drive away as a coward, basically. But everything comes to him. He didn't build the time machine. He doesn't know how it works. Doc is pushing him into that, and then he needs help out of the 80s. Ultimately, he does do some things, which is maybe why we like that character more. But I guess just curious, like as a kid, do you think you would prefer movies where it was a single individual that you were relating to, or did you like these group movies like Explorers?
I probably liked the group movies more as a kid.
Really?
Yeah.
Like the teams or whatever?
Yeah, I kind of lean towards the teams and the gang getting together to figure something out.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Because I think there's something there maybe. And I don't know, we should get back to finishing up talking about Flight of the Navigator, as disappointing as it was. But I do think there's 2 things going on there that I think are worth thinking. I mean, like, for comics, I read the X-Men, so that's a team book. But I think a lot of the characters I really liked and related to were either couples that were flirting, the When Harry Met Sally is Anything But Love. Even as a kid, I think that was there. Han Solo and Leia, although they're kind of a team, so they're out. But I don't know. I think I liked the idea of being, if I was to play act like Back to the Future, as the sole person there, the sole person in that adventure. And I think I would. So this movie seems like it would almost be built for me. Again, it's got UFO references up the Roswell at the beginning. It's amazing how many images it chooses for UFOs sparks something in me. And it's a kid being abducted and having to deal with a world that has changed, even though we don't see it that much. Like, all of that would have appealed to me now, at least. But as a kid, didn't care for it. And this movie, I don't know. I mean, like, this movie is not a good reality to me. I don't care for this movie. I thought I did when we started talking, but now I'm like, nah. This movie misses out on something because it squanders a great story premise. Yeah. And it doesn't give us anything to be excited about after that premise.
I agree. Because it's unfortunate how a bad 20 minutes at the end can just topple the concept of a film. Because it was a neat idea, and I guess it's something they've talked about remaking, retelling.
Really?
Yeah.
Does this movie have a following?
I can't imagine that it doesn't, because it seems like everything from our youth has a following of various sizes. And perhaps it's because
there's no Mr. Boogedy reboot coming.
Oh, you know what? Google it. I'm sure you'll see. Somebody is working on that.
All right. I would say, listeners, if any of you are fans of this movie, I more than other stuff we've talked about, I would actually love to hear from people who grew up loving this movie or people who have fond memories. Just because, again, it was not a blank canvas to me, but it's not something I ever went back to. It's a very faint memory. And honestly, watching it this time, it's got a lot of elements that would have made sense to me to like back then. So yeah, if you're of a certain age, whatever age that is, and you grew up watching this movie, drop us a line. Drop us a line at 20popcast.com on the Pop Talk section, or reach out to us on Facebook or something, because I'd be curious. I would like to hear about that.
I hope they do.
You hope they fill in that blank space there as well.
We can tighten that. Fix that in post.
In post, because that's where we're going now, because this is the end of the show. Then we put music on it, then we tighten it up. Sometimes we re-record gags. Maybe we'll change the title of the movie we talked about.
We could recast the co-host.
Oh, shit. Yeah, I guess you could. Who would you want? Who would you want to co-host with if it wasn't me?
I'm talking about me. I would be recast. You're the host. I'm the co-host. That's how I see it.
Who would you recast?
As me?
No, as me, you'd be doing the show with. Because Linda Cardellini is probably who I would want to be opposite with during this show.
That would make sense.
For me, yeah.
Michael Keaton.
You're no Linda Cardellini, but you're Michael Keaton. Oh, I am no Michael Keaton. Fuck. Oh, wow. Alex P. Keaton, maybe?
Yeah.
Actually, what if it was Alex P. Keaton and Michael Keaton? Because I know they have conflicting politics. That would be a show.
That would be
I'd
interesting.
watch that. I would listen to it, or I'd watch the screen cap of it while the audio played. But this show's audio, if you liked this show's audio and you want to hear more of it, visit 20popcast.com. That's the main website for this show, listeners. It always has the most recent episodes streaming, as well as links to all of our past episodes. But also on this site, if you like this show and you want to get a different episode of it, a new episode every Thursday, why don't you subscribe? Subscribe to the show. That really helps. I know we put it up on Facebook. I know we put up different ways, but if you go directly to a podcast catcher, as they're called, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, whatnot, and subscribe to the show there, you'll always get a new episode. You won't miss one. Plus, that helps us kind of build a bit of an audience. And also, if however you listen to podcasts gives you this option to leave a little review, to give us a little rating, we would appreciate that too. What you like about the show, what you don't, whatever it is, because that one, it helps us, two, it helps our ego, and three, it kind of helps us in the rankings. While you're there, you can also see the links to all of us on the various social medias that we do. You can follow me on Twitter @subcultist and on Instagram @subcultist as well. Bob, you're at 20popcast.com too. What are some of those links?
Yeah, you can link to me on Twitter @RHCanning. I also have a
link to you or follow you?
They can link to my Twitter through the 20 Podcast and follow me on Twitter @RHCanning.
Okay, I'm sorry. That makes sense.
Yeah. And also found at 20popcast.com are links to my music blog where I'm talking about mixtapes that I've saved over the years, going back through those as chronologically as I am able to, and my webcomic, My Exaggerated Life at WordPress. It's exaggeratedlife.wordpress.com. But you can find the link at 20popcast.com.
As chronologically, is that using the word right? Is that the right use?
I was saying as chronologically as possible.
That's what I'm saying. Is that how that word's used?
I think so.
As chronologically? As cryogenically as possible?
Chronologically.
Cryogenically.
No, they're not frozen tapes.
No, they're not, but they could be if they were cryogenically treated.
True.
Or maybe they would survive it if they were cryogenically treated. But, yeah. No, that's good, right?
Yes, I think so.
Yes, I think so. We'll be back next week. But this week, this is how it went. Fuck, what happened there? What just happened?
Well, I don't know.
You
had to say something about the chronological order of my mixtapes.
I was judgmental, right? It backfired.
That didn't need to happen.
No, being a prick just backfired for the first time.
First time.
What am I going to sound like next week? Thank you, universe. That was a fine lesson. Fine lesson.
Hey, I got a text.
All right. I can sit through that. It's not like I can see you. I've just got a microphone hooked up, and I thought it'd be fun to do this. But yeah, if you want to read your text and maybe write back.
No, I'm good. It was just it was an answer to a previously text question. So
was it like, yep, they still sell ice cream and stuff like that, or was it WTLMNOP?
No, it was
or geez, can you believe this dolt on the news?
It was just the letter Y.
Mm-hmm. Was it who's the last man? Was that your question?
No.